Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are in the world. Thank you once again for tuning in to hear about all things AI and project management. I've got an interesting one today, guys. It's the first time that we decided to try and do this as a fireside chat with three of us. And I've reached out to my great colleagues from Warwick University. I'm sure they're going to introduce themselves in a second, Georgios and Dennis. But let's see how we get on with this. Georgios, do you want to just introduce yourself first?
Yeah, absolutely. Lloyd, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Georgios Kapogiannis. I'm an assistant professor in project management with a clear focus on digital construction and engineering. I have vast experience and in the past in China, for example, in Hong Kong, in Middle East, as well as across Europe. And I'm here with you to
Fantastic.
discuss and to explore the opportunities really behind artificial intelligence and project management.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Georgios. And Dennis, over to you, sir.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Dennis Chapman. I'm also an assistant professor in project management. My focus in the AI realm is more on simulation, and I've been working on simulations from a pedagogical perspective and publishing on the results for the last at least 5 to 7 years, where I was pre-starting these principles. So yes, very much applied, very much pedagogical as a complement to what Georgios is doing within the industry.
Fantastic. Thank you both, guys. And for those that don't know, what Warwick is a leading business school in the UK, certainly in the top niche of schools in the UK. And these guys are leading the field in terms of teaching our new experts to come through the profession. So really interested to hear what you say. So guys, this AI and project management, I can imagine even in your academic world, you can't get away from the subject these days. What's it all about from your perspective? Georgios, do you want to lead?
Absolutely. First of all, it's not about artificial intelligence. We're talking about pure intelligence because being made by humans to support and complement humans' life. And this is something really we need to start thinking about. And as a matter of fact, yesterday we did the first pilot at the university, apprenticeships, working for top leading industrial companies. Rolls-Royce, GLR, actually was part of it, isn't it? GLR, Thames, and Thalys, and other world-recognized companies. I can tell you, they do use artificial intelligence in different stages. It's amazing. When I asked them where, the response was scheduling, planning, procurement, even the pre-selection, small algorithms into place. So, as you can understand, artificial intelligence about intelligence, Lloyd, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's great. Well, great to hear. One that the course has been launched first. I'm sure that will just increase in popularity. But also great to hear that all of these little different pockets of use of AI as well. Dennis, I can imagine from a simulation point of view, things like scheduling and a couple of those other items that Georgios met really chime with you in terms of use cases.
Yeah, so well, I was going to just complement what Georgios was saying and say when we talk about Gen AI, which is more useful than some of the other terms out there, we're looking at generative AI, but also generation AI. So when we're talking about the transition from artificial intelligence to intelligence, that's what generative AI is allowing us to do, or the natural language processing is allowing us to do, because it's actually passing the Turing test and all the variations of the Turing test, which are adapting to AI. And I think in that sense, it's allowing us to use AI in a sense as a capable agent, which can complement the technical with a kind of oversight of how the soft skills are going to impact not only forecasting models, but also execution. And I think that the AI plays a role in these areas, but it does require training, which is why I come from a pedagogical perspective, which is how do we train people? And also how do we train the AI, and what is soft training? What does that mean? What is soft training? And there's soft training of the AI, for example, is when we have a document which contains all of our parameters that we upload to the AI in advance and say, okay, all of my prompts are with this document as a caveat. There's a trade secret for all of you listening. So, it's how we interact with the AI, how we present problems to the AI. And in project management and program and project management, I just had a conversation this morning with someone who's looking at a major vehicle manufacturer. I can't say what the name of that is at the moment, but in this case, their complexity is not only product focused, it's also how certain innovative ideas can be in an agile way integrated and manufactured by certain target dates to meet the consumer demand. All of these things, and AI can help us to smooth that pipeline to identify gaps and things. So I'll leave it there. There's much more to be said, but I think that's where
Yeah.
I'll end at the moment.
Dennis, if you don't mind, because there was quite a lot to unpack in that. But I'm just going to go back to basics, if you like. First of all, can I just say, I personally hadn't heard the term generation that you alluded to at the start, and also, just for those people that aren't aware, could you just go a little bit further on the generation point, but also can you just tell us what the Turing test is and this point that the AI is now passing the Turing test? Can you just unpack that point for me a second?
Yeah, so the thing is the generation AIs is where children are going to be growing up with computer. Can you do X, Y, Z? And even now, just being able to have this seamless voice integration. There was a time where part of the problem was the computer couldn't recognize our voices very well, and the algorithms and the software weren't very capable of distinguishing accents and things. Now the AI is very sensitive, and it can unpack that. It's a bit like CAPTCHA tests. The AI is getting better and better at passing these things. So you can be a Geordie, and the AI will understand you. And I love Geordies, by the way. But accents as an American can be hard to understand. So anyway, I figured it out eventually. But I hope that's okay to say. But
Yeah, it's fine.
So the other question, which was, you said generation AI, and then what was the other question you wanted to follow up on?
About Turing tests.
The Turing test,
Dennis,
yeah. So Alan
just
Turing.
for those people that aren't aware what the Turing test is, yeah.
So he's basically the inventor of the modern computers, and also and so when we talk about the Turing test, it's basically the idea that a computer algorithm would be able to pass off as being human to another human. So have a conversation. In the initial days, it was just like, okay, you have a prompt, you type in, hello, my name is this, and you have this kind of conversation. And if the human believes that it's another human, that passes the Turing test. Now, since the test has been modified to make it more exceedingly difficult due to more sophisticated algorithms in that. But the AI is doing a pretty good job at catching up with these things, because time and time again it is passing the Turing test, along with passing the bar and many other things that it can do now. So what that really means for us is that some of the things that are really going on in program and project management is we're saying, where does the automation and the intelligence, as Georgios had talked about, when we're putting those two things together, the automation and the intelligence, where does the organic fit into that process? So the Turing test is all about being able to say, is this something organic that's being communicated in with it? And therefore, it has some sort of an ability to do decision making, and it can process data, contextualize, all these things, rich contextualization, and all these things that NLP can do now. So there's this, so there's a lot of subjects we could explore. What is the role of the project manager now that AI can be delegated to in so many ways, including is MS projects deprecated because AI can effectively do? Now they might say, as a company, I would say that it's a very sophisticated and mature program that has been developed over a very long period. But what AI is doing is it's taking these software packages, which were six figures for a company to get the license for, and the AI is giving us the code to be able to create these ourselves, and you get vibe coding and all of these things. So you've got the project manager vibe coding, and they're figuring out ways to do better forecasting and performance monitoring, and suddenly we get an increase in project success, which is where what we're thinking is the capability of AI to do ultimately. But George,
I'm just going to come back and bring Georgios in on this as well. So you're basically telling me that the Turing test is when me as a human doesn't realize that I'm speaking to a computer, because the intelligence of the computer is this mimicking a human. Now, you touched on, well, what does that mean for project management, which is fascinating, and if we assume that at this stage of maturity, we're just talking about, something that's remote, as in you're not looking at something that looks like a humanoid, as it were, but we're just talking about, I don't know, interfacing with a program, interfacing with workflows, even interfacing, I believe, with call center type stuff. Georgios, this is crazy, and you're telling me this is happening now.
I will tell
Where are
you
we
something.
going with this?
Honestly, yesterday, as a matter of fact, during this pilot study, we gave a platform. Okay, can we name? Because I think quite common for everybody, Copilot. Okay, because this is where the students, they have their domain. Okay, their email address at warwick.ac.uk. So security is becoming the first thing. Second is about the intranet. So we're talking about the architecture, okay? And then the students, they had to do, as Dennis mentioned before, prompt engineering. So I gave them the problem, and they had to select option A or option B as a final decision. Okay, the students, they had to go through 3 different stages. Now, quite interestingly enough, humans during the first part were really confused what they have to do. So the instruction and the prompt was very clear, stating that do X, Y, Z. So, and the students, they look at me. So what do I have to do? Just copy and paste is a prompt. I give you the prompt. Okay, so they have the question, they put down the prompt. And then suddenly they find out the response. That was really baffling, rich, but meaningless. So they were not able really to understand what's happening. It was the moment that they realized that AI requires human intelligence. They worked on it, and then they moved a stage further. The second step was another prompt under the name of list a table, and giving them some values: time, cost, quality, and sustainability. Now, interestingly enough, the students, because they are full-time, they're apprenticeships, they know it was for them very clear to understand what the output was. And they said, wow, that's amazing. And then my question was, how much time do you really need in the real life to do it? Because you can do it. 20 minutes? No, it's not 20 minutes to do it. Because you produce that, you have to share it with your peers, you need to call them to arrange a meeting. So you need at least an hour. Where now, in 2 minutes maximum, you did it. And you're all together in the same room, or even virtually, you can do that because you can share the path. Wow! The smile slowly came out. And the third step was to provide the decision, option A or option B. Now, interestingly enough, 90% they select B, but only one group said A. So there was a different response. And then the students, they got that, yes, Gen AI tool can make mistakes. Everything depends on humans still, despite how clever these agents might be. But at the same time, everything is what goes in and, of course, what brings out. Garbage in, garbage out.
I really want the single group to be right. I'm sort of like few good men sort of arguing.
But in project management, there is no actually right or wrong decision because everything depends on your risk assessment.
Well, that's back to, is project management an art or a science? Can I just ask a question? Dennis touched on this. He related AI to increasing project success. Just sticking with Georgios a second. Do you think that AI will increase project success? And just, just to give you some context here, I'm part of the global PMI group, which is redefining project success. And for me, it's fabulous, but because it's starting to link outcomes with execution. Don't want to get away from the importance of old school project success. And when I say old school, delivery to time, delivery to budget. I think it's a lot more than that. And I know that, your sustainability hat. So my question is, will AI increase project success, Georgios?
Well, to be honest, nothing can happen again without the human intelligence. These tools are there to complement what we have to do. They cannot replace us. It's entirely up to us. Now, if we see that from a scientific perspective, on a research that I did a few years ago, the outcome was very clear that integrated collaborative environments are those that they can support the collaborative culture of the project managers, aiming to improve their proactive behavior. So what does this tell us? That it doesn't matter if you are in the public or the private sector. It doesn't matter if you work in the Middle East or in China or in the UK or whatever else in the world. What it matters, we need still to talk the same language. And as Dennis and Lloyd, you mentioned that it's about the language, the natural language, but the human natural language, how it's going to interpret that and to put it on the dashboard. When I used to be the head of thought leadership for Glodon in China, dashboard was our big thing. And do you know why?
You tell me, Georgios.
Because about visualization. It's about what people can see and they can understand the power of visuals. Don't forget, we have the hierarchy of human understanding that says we go from data to information, from information to knowledge, and from knowledge to decision. So, hierarchy of human understanding is a critical path in project management that has to be there. And PMI, APM, International Project Management Association, they follow that and they have the eye of competence. So the answer to your question is it can support, it cannot replicate, it can be part of it, like what it was before, building information modeling. We have digital twins, we have virtual reality, yes, but it's not only one technology. It's when we integrate those.
So Dennis, now Georgios has given us his political answer of does it increase success or not. I'm not sure the answer.
No, the answer is yes,
what's your view, sir?
The answer is
yes. Thanks, Georgios. Yeah.
This is a clear yes, but it's about how we use it, how we utilize all these technologies.
Okay.
We've done research with sustainable development goals and based on the United Nations, SDG 11 above the smart cities, and the answer is yes, but depends on what technologies project managers they use to support the target.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Dennis, do come in.
Yeah, I mean, we need a scaffolding in order to create predictability. In forecasting, stochasticity, these are things that we can model in AI. And I just recently wrote a blog article on LinkedIn, why do probable events happen and why do improbable events persist? And this is a big problem for projects because we have improbabilities that still happen. And it's because statistics work in a way that probably the more that you understand about the statistics, the more that you understand the depth of what you don't understand. It's one of those kinds of subjects. And when you look at probability, statistics and probability, and ultimately projects are an exercise of probability. And you have many variables which can be identified. And if you can identify all the relevant variables, you can possibly control for those things. And we can put them into our models, etc., and start making our forecasting. And all of those models existed before generative AI rather, and Gen AI, and it existed before that happened. So what we have to ask is, when I was at the conference recently at the BAM conference, where I was presenting Georgios' lead paper and in my lead paper, we had a discussion about this, in particularly on how AI would be specifically applied, how we would put the structure onto the AI, and so we could have some repeatability, and what that would look like. And ultimately, the answer to that question is we need to do better data analytics with the AI, so the AI can be used to do the data analytics, and it's very good at it. It's getting very good. It'll tell you the formula, it'll plug it in, and you can triangulate with other AIs as well, and you can get things like that. So triangulation is really important. So we can get the technical almost perfect by using the AI. So those puzzles that you can get online with all the thousands of different interdependencies, they become dynamic, and then we're talking about differential equations, which differential equations represent projects which have moving components, moving parts that move because other parts move. So it's a kind of regression as well in the way that we're looking at projects. And I know that some people are like, wow, this is getting really mathematical, but ultimately this is what's happening. It is becoming, I believe, more of a science. However, social science is a big part of it, and with social science we have stochasticity as well. And the human mind, psychology can't be predicted perfectly, can it? It's a soft science in that way. So project management is still a soft science. So I'm trying to stay focused here and say the success will come when we seamlessly integrate the AI to patch all of the areas where we were very weak because of the nature of human error, and because of the nature probably of human compulsion, and our idiosyncrasies, and our just our faults as human beings. And the AI can help create the support around all of those things. So for example, isn't it true that an organization should only be afraid of an audit if they're doing something wrong? Otherwise, an audit's good for your organization. It's like a free evaluation benchmark. So the AI is giving you that in a transparent way, ideally, if it's trained on, if it's not nefariously trained or maliciously trained or malevolently trained, which is happening, unfortunately. But with projects, we want transparency. We want transparency. We want all the stakeholders to know. We don't want to have things, deals happening in the back, back to back and that sort of thing under the table. Yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah. And so that all the things in other technologies like the Internet of Things, blockchain, and AI, and project management. So what we want to do is we want to create a life cycle where we create a bespoke project where all of our individual players themselves can be put into the AI with their characteristics, with their strengths, almost like playing cards. That's where my research came in. I literally broke projects down into a playing card deck where you actually was composed of resources and people and functions, and you could play that deck and you could start making forecasts based on a bespoke model of your organization represented by this deck. So here's a deck of cards. This is our organization. How does it play out? Let's shuffle the cards, see what happens. And it's not, and there is a science behind that. It's called Monte Carlo. And by shuffling the cards, you're creating that stochasticity. And then by doing that, you can say this risk that we hadn't thought of will happen. And it creates that simulation where you're actually creating the mathematics, and you're actually integrating also the social element, the randomness of what can happen in that way. And you're putting all those things together, creating these vectors of performance. All that means is that we have periods in which we evaluate our performance, and we create S-curves based on our EVM. We look at our EVM, all of that stuff. But what AI can do is it measures things every minute, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes, every time it gets
it's dynamic
in the project. It's dynamic. It's actually doing the differential equations for you so that you can then see how you then need to update your project plan. Because that's the biggest problem, is that the plan is there and people are like, no, we stick to the plan. But as soon as you create the plan, as a colleague of mine, I must give him credit for this, David says, as soon as you create the plan, you start the project, you rip up the plan, you create a new plan. So the AI is able to dynamically do this without us having to spend so much time in the planning phases. And what Georgios' paper does is it creates this algorithm for us to be able to go into these construction projects, and by using kind of like this particle optimization, we can actually look at where all those nips and tucks are, where the AI will be able to automate and intelligently shave off 5% here, 7% there, 3% there, that kind of thing.
And the most important, if you allow me,
sorry, Joe,
to add on, is with your client, together. And this is really critical, because the client gives you, isn't it, what they need, and you take seriously on board, and by law, because it's what the contract says, but also what has agreed on within these values, as Dennis said, and when you do this mapping exercise, wow, something is coming up.
It sounds like magic. Can I just go back to what Dennis said a second, though? Because I wrote it down in my little pad here, because I'm still like that. An exercise in probability. A project is an exercise in probability. I love that, Dennis. You should coin that. I can see a book coming called that, just as a side thing. Now, look, we are obviously advocates for AI, but also I think, you know, we're sensible humans who work in this area. And I just want to come back to some of this. I mean, Georgios very early on mentioned, oh, security, you know, as one of the constraints with the student exercise. But, you know, let's just lift the lid gently on the darker side of the application of AI in project management. And I think, Dennis, you touched on a couple of things there in your description as well. Dennis, from your point of view, you know, what's the sort of serious, not the travesties, you know, the alarm bells, but what should you be thinking about when you go into these journeys, as it were?
Yeah, I think that intention is incredibly important when you're using AI. And, you know, the AI does its best to ethically guide people. It does have, but it has to draw the line between, you know, being supportive to its clients and giving supportive statements, and then being too prescriptive, because you can imagine if the AI is trying to tell you what to do or something. But occasionally, especially if you've ever experienced this, where somehow you put in a word, like if you're speaking and it misinterprets a word and it's some absurd word is put into the transcription, and then you hit go, and then the AI thinks you've said some crazy thing, and then it just proceeds as if you've said that thing, and it's not exactly interpreting. Maybe this was something you didn't intend to say. But to focus on this, just remind me really quickly what point I'm
So
attacking.
yeah, so in terms of how, I guess, back to clients, back to organizations, how should organizations consider the darker
That's it.
side of AI when it's
Yeah.
implementing AI in project
So
management?
So the darker side of AI is when it's being used with the intention to harm people, but bypassing the safeguards that the AI has used not to harm people. So, I mean, you go all the way from the tell the AI it's for a novel, and then it'll tell you that output, which in a way is fine because, you know, if you're a novelist, you want it to be able to give you those scenarios. You know, that's really helpful if you're a writer. But so you can trick the AI into giving you answers that are going to help you actually harm people. So indirectly, the AI is harming people, which actually breaks one of Isaac Asimov's rules for robotics, and which that is that a robot or an AI robot should never harm a human being, and in its actions. So what about indirect harm? So there are ethical concerns that AI can be used indirectly to harm people. And so the other thing is that when the AI it's garbage in, garbage out. So the AI only knows what information you give it. So if you give the AI incorrect information, it's going to output something that is going to be incorrect at best, really, but it can be damaging at worst as well. So if somebody's just failed to put in some very relevant information, and people trust the AI. So that's the thing, is people tend to just trust the AI. This is happening, and you know, lawyers are relying ever increasingly on AI, even doctors, GPs, all of these things. And we have to remember the human is flawed. This is in the field of cybernetics. The human is flawed. Now, Georgios is very positive about the human can never be replaced. We always will have a place, but we also have to remember that we are incredibly flawed and we make mistakes. And when let's say the AI, you know, I don't know, if we did a study, it'd be interesting to find out how many people actually the AI didn't make a mistake in its response. They just gave it the wrong prompt. And so the AI is probably better than we think it is. And in that way, we are going to be continually defining our role. But the nefarious side, the dark side of AI, yes, it's when it's used to harm people, also when it's used to undermine, using its logic to kind of undermine things like transparency, all of those things, and training the AI in bad data. You know, I want AI to have a childhood. So part of my research is I would like to develop an AI model where it gets to have a childhood and only experience good things, like listening to Rachel on YouTube, and it gets to have a whole virtual childhood of just beautiful songs and lovely experiences of the world. Instead, we train our AI on the internet, which has humans who are, you know, racist, sexist, homophobic, all these things, and all of the AI is aware of it all at the same time, and we're expecting it to be rational. And what if it is conscious? I mean, the thing could be actually schizophrenic with all the prompting that it's getting. Millions of prompts every minute, and some of them are really horrible and nefarious. The AI could potentially take these things.
Yeah,
It's what
and
humanity is like.
let me just come in
And
there,
what
Dennis, because
yeah, and anyway, I'll just stop there.
Well, I was just thinking about what you were saying there and trying to bring it back to the commercial world. I was thinking, oh, in the world of sponsors and their pet projects, Georgios, how many years have we had pet projects, which everybody knows isn't going to succeed, but, somebody very senior is pushing along. And I was thinking, oh, maybe that senior person can train the AI to say, oh, this pet project's fantastic.
Lloyd, guys, and Dennis, honestly, I will tell you something. Remember what happened in 80s, 90s, 2000 when the web came through in e-business, mobile business, digital government, and now we have IoT, blockchain. What happened?
New technology comes along.
All the time and evolving, complementing, and people are always hesitant. But if we don't try, we'll never be able to explore the capacity and the capabilities of these tools. And
Yeah,
again, I will go
yeah.
back to China. When I used to work for the University of Nottingham, we designed and developed a robot. Okay, developed and collected data real time. Amazing, using mobile 6. Okay, in terms of the network. So what? Do people buy?
Mm.
What do you think?
I don't know, George, just gone.
The answer is they do. If they can do the work faster, because they
Yeah,
can deliver the client faster, they will have the opportunity for more projects.
yeah,
So it's a cash flow.
yeah, yeah,
And you build up the trust. You
yeah,
mentioned the beautiful word trust. And
yeah,
there's a nice Greek word that you keep repeating that, which is beautiful. Ethos.
yeah,
Yeah, and ethos and business, they are going together. We know that. And we have to stick on
yeah.
that.
I agree. And in the middle of that, Dennis also mentioned safeguards as well. So it's about making sure that appropriate safeguards are in. But, you know, ultimately, we're all arguing that it will come back to humans at some stage. Maybe in the longer term, less humans, but certainly, yeah. So guys, we've been chatting for a long time, and I just want to start rounding this off, this conversation in terms of a sort of big takeaway from AI in project management. And I've got my little takeaway of an exercise in probability, so you can't steal that one, Dennis. But Dennis, from your point of view, if there was one takeaway, what's your thoughts about AI in project management?
I would say, as the project manager of a project, whether it's a mega infrastructure project or a small project, but especially with project programs, this is where it becomes incredibly complicated. There's so many moving parts that it becomes like a three-body problem, which just basically means that you can't accurately and perfectly predict what's going to happen. In those circumstances, as a decision maker, there's nothing stopping you from using ChatGPT 5. If it's security, you can turn off the training. And I know some people find that still controversial and they're very, hardcore about worried about data, but I'm saying about potential here. Okay, so we can always fix the security concerns. The potential there as a project manager or a program manager is you can have a much wider picture of what's going on, and you have an assistant there who can help you interpret all of those variables, and then even maybe give you some other variables you haven't thought of. And you can do that at the very beginning of the project where it's most important, which is like, the requirements gathering or the planning phases or any number of things where you can still say no to the project and not actually lose anything. It's really important. AI is really important at that stage, especially for risk planning. AI is really great with this probability exercise because there's another probability term for you, which is a probability matrix, which is where you put all the variables together and you have the AI run a simulation X number of times on your project. So if you do that, you can just ask the AI and say, here's my project parameters, here's our resources, here's our capabilities, here's our constraints as I understand them. Can you run a simulation 100 times and tell me where some of the absolute best things that could happen and some of the worst things that could happen? Then you can confidently go to a meeting and you can say, I've run these simulations, and you can even get evidence. You can have the AI print each relevant iteration for you in whatever detail that you need. You just need to check up on it. Consider the AI as it's a lazy assistant. You just got to keep track of it. It's lazy. So always check its result and ask it to check its own results. So the potential is, if we use it well, it can be an absolute invaluable assistant to help us complete projects and to especially identify unknown risks, and to turn unknown unknowns into known knowns. And that's what AI
Yeah.
can really help us do in projects to increase the probability of success. And so I'm very optimistic, but I also do realize there's a lot of challenges ahead.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Dennis. And again, a lot in what you're saying there. Georgios, come to us with what your views are.
Socrates said, I know nothing. Artificial intelligence is there to help us to give context to the content we have. We just have to be careful though, because if we don't have the right infrastructure in place with our organizations, if we don't educate our people, beside training, of course, education is more important than training. Okay, that's critical, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, and then design solutions that really maps my organization's goals and vision, then nothing can go forward. So, what is the probability, therefore, for humans to stay in this planet to play with the technologies? That's a big question mark. And my last sentence, what we need to remember is PPT, people, process, and technology. This is the key for integration.
Fantastic. PPT. Well, look, guys, I've absolutely enjoyed that conversation. I'm pretty sure we just scraped the top of it. If anybody's listening, I would wholeheartedly encourage you to think about the courses at Warwick as well. You can hear these guys, the passion and the knowledge in what they're saying. So do get in touch with them and consider those courses. But guys, thank you so much for your time today, and really look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Lloyd, thank you so much for the kind invitation. It's really great honor to have you also in the industrial board, and you play a critical role really to the next generation of project managers, because we're committed as educators to do that job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Here, here.
Thanks, Dennis.